What up? It's your boy Wall Street, and I'm back, ready to talk to you all about some hoops. And today, I want to talk about the NBA Finals. And I want to specifically talk about the games, right? We had game one where Tyrese Haliburton hit that crazy game-winning shot. Pacers only led for 0.3 seconds of that entire game, which happened to be the final 0.3 seconds, which is why they came away victorious. Very exciting game. And then game two wasn't super great. The Thunder kind of ran away with it a little bit in the second quarter, and then it just seems like it got away from the Pacers after that, which was to be expected, right? Like, I think the Thunder have done a great job bouncing back after losses this entire season, so kind of expected that. But what I want to talk about is this matchup, right, is what a lot of people were talking about before the finals started. And a lot of people are saying, well, this is not a matchup you would have expected. It's not a glamorous matchup, right? And I genuinely think that's just because people are looking at the logos and being like, I don't know these teams, right? Because if you're an average basketball fan, right, the teams you know are the Lakers, the Celtics, the Knicks. That might be it, right? If you're an average basketball fan, maybe the Heat. So for people to tune in, to basketball, say you haven't been watching all season, most people are going to see, it's the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers. Like, I'm not watching this, right? And that's kind of like judging a book by its cover, right? Well, that actually is judging a book by its cover. But I think a lot of people aren't giving credit where it needs to be due, right? Like, the reason these teams are in the finals is because they're the two best teams in the league right now, right? That's how I view it, right? If you made it to the finals, the best team in the league, right? Or at least best in your conference, right? It all depends on who wins the finals, right? And then that's the best team in the league for that season. But let's what I kind of wanted to say was that the reason that this is happening, where you have these smaller market teams, is because of what happened with the collective bargaining agreement to bring in, the first apron and second apron rules for teams that are spending into the luxury tax, right? So let me try and break this down, because it still is complicated. I'm still trying to grasp it a little bit. But basically, if you think about each and every one of these teams as a business, right, some of them are going to do better than others, right? Because there's some markets where basketball just isn't really a big sport for people, and, that could be it. But it's also, you just don't have a lot of people in that market, right? If you're talking about the market of Oklahoma City and comparing that to Los Angeles, those are two very different markets. Different kinds of viewers, different people, different personalities, different everything, right? Different interests. There's a lot of different stuff going on. So previously, when you didn't have these apron rules, where basically if you spend a certain amount, you're being limited in your ability to then configure and adjust your roster further with the actual moves you can make, not exactly the money that can be spent. I mean, that too, obviously, but before, it used to be like you could really just sign a player and just go into the luxury tax, right? And there were some restrictions, you couldn't go over a certain number, but it wasn't like if you spent over the cap and went into the luxury tax that you were getting penalized in other ways. You were really just getting penalized by paying the luxury tax. But for a team, let's say like the New York Knicks, who it's like to sit in the last row in the arena, it's like $150. Comparatively, a team like the Pacers might be charging $10 for that same ticket, right, in the back of the arena. So if you're a team like the Knicks and these apron rules are not in place, you might think, I can just sign whoever I want, because if we need to go on the luxury tax, like, we don't have a tight budget. We're making plenty of money on the business of selling these tickets, selling jerseys, selling merch, selling concessions, popcorn, candy, all that stuff when people are coming to games. We're fine, right? So what it does, is it helps those smaller market teams kind of get to an even playing field, because those teams aren't making enough money, even if they wanted to go and sign a top tier talent. They're not making enough money to really cover that check, right? So, but now with the apron rules, it's like, okay, cool. You can go off and spend all this stuff, but we're going to make it really hard for you to maintain that roster. We're going to make it really hard for you to pay other guys that might be coming up in free agency. And that's what we're going to do, right? And it seems to have worked to an extent, right? We've seen teams make moves solely for financial purposes to make their roster configuration process more free and more open, so that they're not restricted with these rules that come with overspending, right? We had the Timberwolves do this, where they trade Karl Anthony Towns to the Knicks. There's been a couple of other teams that have done this, but we're going to continue to see that. But I think the thing that is really important here is that by limiting teams that could do that, right? Because, you had these super teams back in the early 2010s. You had the Miami Heat with LeBron, D-Wade, Chris Bosh, and then they signed Ray Allen. There's a lot of other teams that have tried to mimic this. You had the Golden State Warriors, like Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and DeMarcus Cousins, all at the same time. So, and that team obviously didn't pan out the way that they thought it would with DeMarcus Cousins, at least. But obviously that was a very good team. They went back-to-back championships. They went to the finals 3 years in a row. So there's a lot to be said about that era of basketball, but it seems like that era is not going to happen anymore because you can't construct your roster in the same way, which I personally think is a good thing. I think it does make things a little bit more even. I think at the NBA, if you didn't have these rules, you would have everyone going to the Lakers, or you'd have everyone going to New York, or maybe Miami. But it would be very concentrated in those markets. So everyone that's saying that this isn't an entertaining matchup and this, that, whatever, I think you're thinking too much about the logos as opposed to the basketball, right? Because Tyrese Halliburton, super exciting. Pascal Siakam, super exciting. The Pacers, besides those two, also have a very deep team. Miles Turner has been playing great the entire postseason. Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith. Aaron Nesmith has been unbelievable, right? And on the Thunder side too, right? Everyone knows Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, league MVP. Some people know Chet Holmgren, some people know Jalen Williams, right? But a lot of people don't know Alex Caruso. A lot of people don't know Cason Wallace. A lot of people don't know Lou Dort. A lot of people don't know the guys that make this team possible. Mainly on the defensive end, but there's so many ingredients to a perfect team, and neither of these teams are perfect, but they're very, very, very good teams, and you need key players. But I think what I'm trying to get at overall, right, is my message is that this is what is going to happen in the NBA going forward. Until there is a new collective bargaining agreement, we are going to see teams that you might have not assumed would have made it to the finals in previous years make it to the finals, right? Because it's opening up. The playing field is a lot more open. I would say that the discrepancy in talent from teams 1 through 8 in the postseason, at least on the Eastern Conference, is a lot smaller now than it was previously, right? Because it was like, you have a 1 and 8 seed playing in the playoffs. It was almost like, without a doubt, you knew that they were going to get swept, right? And we knew that was the case with Cleveland and Miami this year. But Boston, Orlando, they had a little bit of a battle. I'm not going to lie, right? Boston obviously came out on top, but and I don't think anyone ever thought that the Celtics were in question there to advance. But you're going to have smaller market teams being able to build their rosters up and compete with higher level talent teams, in terms of just the names that they have on the roster. I think that's going to be a more consistent theme going forward. It's not going to be like, oh, you have to have a superstar on your team in order to make it to the finals. I don't think that's the case right now. I don't think Tyrese Halliburton's a superstar. I think Shai is the closest thing to a superstar, but I think that would really be solidified if he wins the NBA Finals and wins the Finals MVP, because then he's won MVP, Finals MVP, and the chip all in the same season. So I think that'd be pretty incredible. But I'm all for it. I think these small market teams need to be given a little bit more of, it's not even like a boost, but I think it's just like, this is a way for small market teams to get themselves out there, right? Because you can now contend with these bigger market teams, and if you can advance far in the postseason, those are games on national television. You're building your brand, right? There's tons of people who don't live in Chicago and have nothing to do with the city of Chicago that are Bulls fans solely because of Michael Jordan, right? And I think this type of tactic with the collective bargaining agreement does a lot of that, where it's like, oh, well, these guys that get drafted to our team, whether that's someone that's playing in Indiana, or someone that's playing in Washington, D.C., or someone that's playing in San Antonio, Texas. Like, it gives those guys faith that, like, I don't need to go anywhere else, because, like, these other teams that are building up talent, like, they can only do it to some extent, right? Like, we can build up here, draft it, sign talent, that's not crazy exceptional, high level, high contract value talent. We're just putting all the pieces together, and that can work. Before, that wasn't the case. It was like you need multiple stars on your team to contend, and I think, this new CBA is really doing something. So we're going to continue to see these small market teams. I love it. I'm a Wizards fan, so I'm all for it. And I think it's good for the NBA. I think it's going to get more people interested in basketball, because they're going to have more teams in their, local area, right? Or at least closer in proximity to them, that might be, going to the finals and being these really good teams that go on championship runs, when, back in the day, that might not have really happened, right? The Indiana Pacers have never won an NBA championship. So, and it's been a while since they've, really kind of gotten back to, their highest level of glory, right? Like, they were in the conference finals last season, but I don't really even count that. Like, that was kind of a wash to me, right? Like, I think everyone was giving them a ton of noise because they kind of beat out the Knicks in the semis, but the Knicks were like, they had like nobody available to play for them. And then this year they did it again and beat them in the conference finals, and now they're in the NBA finals. So they really did solidify their position and showed what it was. And Indiana's a great state for basketball, right? College basketball, high school basketball, professional basketball. Indiana loves basketball. So shout out the Pacers, shout out Indiana, and shout out the Thunder, shout out Oklahoma City. I know they've been waiting a long time to get their team back to this point. And it's going to be cool, man. It's going to be cool. The Thunder have never won a championship as like the OKC Thunder. I believe they won championships as the Seattle Supersonics, but once they moved to Oklahoma City, they've been to the finals one time and they did not win. So if they can bring a title to Oklahoma City, I think that'd be super huge too, and would just build upon this, small market team success that we've been having over the last, couple of seasons. So definitely more small market teams to come, in terms of, successful small market teams that are advancing far in the playoffs and, winning titles. I think this is just the beginning. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I'm gonna catch you later though. Stay up, stay blessed, stay safe, stay humble, handle business, stand on business. Peace out.